5 cocky recruits saw a lone woman in the base canteen as their next conquest. They blocked her exits, closing in for the humiliation. 30 seconds later, they were on the floor, broken, asking one single, terrified question. "What are you?" The air over the Nevada training base shimmered, a visible wall of heat rising from the asphalt that connected the barracks to the motor pool. This was where Maya Callahan was walking when 5 young recruits, self-styled as the Kings, decided she would be their afternoon's entertainment. The shoulder check was deliberate, forceful enough to send her clipboard and a stack of inventory forms scattering across the sun-baked ground. "Watch yourself, ma'am," one of them drawled, the apology laced with condescension. He was their leader, Caleb Thorne, all chiseled jaw, arrogant smirk, and the unearned confidence of a man who'd never been told no. Maya looked up from the ground, her expression unreadable. "My mistake," she said, her voice quiet, almost lost in the desert wind. They all knew it wasn't. The Kings chuckled as they swaggered past, but Caleb glanced back, a predator logging a new target. From that moment, Maya Callahan was on their radar. To them, she was nothing. A temporary logistics clerk in her early 30s, brought in to manage inventory. Her ID badge read civilian contractor, and her base access was minimal. She had reddish-brown hair pulled back in a neat, functional scorpion braid, a dusting of freckles across her nose, and a plainness that made her blend into the background. Her uniform was standard-issue PT gear, faded black shorts, and a simple gray t-shirt that hid her frame. But the paperwork didn't tell the whole story. It didn't capture the way she moved, not walking, but flowing through the base, her steps economical and silent. It didn't explain how she always positioned herself with her back to a wall in the canteen, her eyes constantly, subconsciously, mapping exits and tracking movement. And it certainly didn't mention the fine, silvery scar that traced a line from her right eyebrow into her hairline, a detail most people missed unless they looked too closely. The permanent staff, men and women who had seen real conflict, gave her a wide berth. Not because she was unfriendly, she'd offer a curt nod or a one-word answer when addressed, but because they recognized a certain stillness in her, a coiled energy that spoke of things best left undisturbed. She was a ghost, haunting the edges of their daily routines, disappearing into the contractor quarters the moment her duties were done. Most respected that privacy, but recruits, fresh and full of unearned pride, saw it as a challenge. And the Kings had never met a challenge they didn't want to conquer. 4 days after the clipboard incident, the second encounter took place near the communications depot. Maya was hunched over a crate of ancient radio parts, her focus absolute as she cross-referenced serial numbers. Caleb Thorne and his most loyal echo, Liam, decided to make their move. "Damn," Caleb said, his voice a stage whisper loud enough to carry. "Didn't know they issued such fine assets for a simple inventory job." Maya's head didn't even lift. A brief flicker of her eyes acknowledged their presence before returning to the list. There were background noise, an annoyance to be filtered out. This wasn't the reaction Caleb was accustomed to. He stepped closer, leaning against the depot wall. "I'm talking to you." "I heard you," Maya replied, her pen never ceasing its methodical scratching. "I'm working." Liam let out a theatrical laugh. "She's working, Caleb. Very serious business, this counting stuff." Caleb studied her, his gaze invasive. "You know, most people here try to be part of the community. But you act like you're too good to talk to us." Finally, Maya set her pen down. She looked directly at him, and for the first time, Caleb saw her eyes clearly. They were a deep, calm hazel, and they held zero impressed admiration. "I'm not too good to talk to people," she said, her voice even. "I'm just too busy to talk to you." The dismissal hung in the hot, dry air. Liam whistled softly. "Ouch." But Caleb just smiled, a cold, predatory grin that didn't reach his eyes. This wasn't over. "Fair enough," he said, pushing off the wall. "But everyone's gotta eat. We'll catch you at the canteen sometime, when you're not so busy." As they walked away, laughing, Maya watched them go. She then pulled out her phone and quietly adjusted her meal schedule, shifting it 30 minutes earlier. It was a simple, tactical adjustment to avoid friction. But to men like Caleb Thorne, avoidance wasn't seen as wisdom. It was seen as fear, and it was an invitation to push harder. Master Sergeant Vance, a man whose face was a roadmap of 2 decades in the service, had seen it all. He'd clocked the Kings on day 1. He also noticed how they looked at the quiet civilian clerk. He recognized her type, not from a file, but from the economy of her movement, the constant assessment in her eyes. The next morning, he found Caleb and his crew loitering. "Something on your minds, boys?" Vance's voice was gravelly. "No, Master Sergeant," Caleb snapped to attention. "Just discussing base integration protocols. Is that what you call harassing contractors now?" Vance asked, his eyes hard. Liam flushed. "We were just being friendly, Master Sergeant." "Friendly," Vance repeated slowly. He let the silence stretch. "You ever hear the phrase, 'still waters run deep'?" he finally asked. "Some people are quiet because they've got nothing to say. Others are quiet because they've seen too much, and they're smart enough to keep it to themselves. The trick is figuring out which is which before you do something monumentally stupid." Caleb's jaw tightened. "You think we're being stupid, Master Sergeant?" "I think you're circling something you don't understand," Vance said, his voice low and serious. "And that's dangerous. Let me tell you about dangerous people. The real ones don't advertise. They don't need to. You push them, and you find out exactly what dangerous means. I suggest you leave Miss Callahan alone." Caleb's expression was a mask of compliance. "Understood, Master Sergeant." But Vance saw the defiance simmering beneath the surface. He'd seen that look before, right before a young soldier learned a lesson the hard way. He just hoped the burns wouldn't be permanent. The base canteen at 1900 hours was a place of echoes. The main dinner rush was over, leaving behind a handful of night shift personnel and those, like Maya, who preferred solitude. The clatter of trays was replaced by a low hum. Maya moved through her routine with practiced efficiency. Tray, utensils, a scoop of what was optimistically labeled beef stew. Calories were calories. She chose her usual table in the far corner, back to the wall, with clear sight lines to both entrances. An old habit from a life she was supposed to have left behind. She was halfway through her meal when the atmosphere in the room changed. It was a subtle shift in air pressure, the kind that precedes a storm. The Kings entered. All 5 of them. They moved not in a formal line, but with a fluid predatory grace that told Maya this was a planned event. They spread out as they walked, a loose, closing net. Caleb, Liam, the 2 hulking figures of Marcus and Finn, and the wiry, nervous energy of Noah. They were cutting off the exits. Maya noticed, of course, but she kept eating, her body language a study in non-confrontation. Well, Caleb's voice sliced through the quiet. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence." Maya took another spoonful of stew, chewed, and swallowed. "Evening," she said, not looking up. Liam laughed, a high, nervous sound. "She talks? I was starting to think you were a mute." "Just selective," Maya replied. Marcus, a mountain of a man, stepped closer, his shadow falling over her table. "Selective about what?" "About who's worth my breath." The words were not hostile, just a statement of fact, which made them cut deeper than any insult. Finn moved to her other side. "That's pretty damn rude." Maya finally looked up, her hazel eyes sweeping over each of them, a calm, unnerving assessment. "Is it?" "Yeah," Caleb said, sliding uninvited into the chair opposite her. He leaned forward, his voice dropping into a conspiratorial tone. "See, we're a team. The Kings. We look out for each other. We have traditions. But you act like you're above it all." "The only thing I'm doing is eating my dinner," Maya said quietly. "By choice." Noah chimed in from behind her, blocking her last clear path of retreat. "You choose to be alone. That's an insult to the rest of us." "See, that's the thing," Caleb continued, his smile widening. "We're all about team integration here. We have this little tradition. All the Kings have ink, a tattoo that shows we're part of the Brotherhood. You're so determined not to be part of the team, makes us wonder what you're hiding under that plain gray shirt." Maya's brain was a calm, cold machine, processing data. 5 hostiles, overconfident. Exit A blocked by Marcus and Finn. Exit B, 7 meters blocked by Noah. Primary threat, Caleb, at 12 o'clock. All are exhibiting signs of pack mentality, aggression escalating. The escalation has failed. She set her spoon down with a soft click. What do you want, Caleb? He leaned back, spreading his hands. We want to see your team ink. Prove you're not some ice queen who thinks she's better than us. Take off your shirt. The demand, crude and absolute, hung in the air. The few other soldiers in the canteen either didn't notice or were making a great show of not noticing. No, Maya said, her voice flat. That wasn't a request, Liam snarled, stepping closer. He reached for the hem of her shirt. We can do this the easy way, or we can help. Maya looked at Caleb one last time. You are absolutely sure you want to do this? Caleb's grin was triumphant. We're sure. In that moment, Maya Callahan made a decision. There would be no more warnings, no more negotiation. She simply reached down, grabbed the hem of her gray t-shirt, and pulled it over her head in one smooth, deliberate motion. The Kings let out a whoop of victory. They high-fived, their laughter echoing in the tense silence. They had won. They had broken the Ice Queen. But their celebration died in their throats as their eyes adjusted to what they were seeing. She sat before them in a plain black sports bra, her posture unchanged. But the torso they had expected to be pale and soft was a roadmap of violence. A long, jagged surgical scar ran down her left side. A puckered, starburst-shaped burn mark marred her right shoulder. A constellation of smaller, deeper scars, the kind left by shrapnel, peppered her ribs and abdomen. And beneath the scars was a physique of pure, functional power. Not the sculpted muscles of a gym enthusiast, but the dense, corded sinew of a professional warrior, forged in crucibles they couldn't even imagine. They were too stunned to process the warning signs. There we go, Caleb stammered, his bravado faltering. Was that so hard? Now the rest, Liam muttered, emboldened by a foolish surge of adrenaline. He moved behind her, his fingers reaching for the clasp of her sports bra. That was the last mistake he would ever make in a uniform. The explosion was silent and absolute. Before Liam's fingers even brushed the fabric, Maya's left elbow drove backward into his solar plexus. It wasn't a wild swing, it was a surgical strike. The impact made a sickening, wet thud, and all the air left Liam's body in a choked gasp as he crumpled to the floor. Before he even hit the ground, Maya was moving. She launched herself out of the chair, not away from the fight, but into it. Caleb, still seated, saw only a blur before her knee connected with his face. The sharp crack of breaking cartilage was sickeningly loud. Blood erupted from his nose as his head snapped back, and he tumbled backward out of his chair. Marcus and Finn lunged from opposite sides, confident their combined bulk could crush her. It was a fatal miscalculation. Maya stepped inside Marcus's clumsy grab, seized his extended arm, twisted, and used his own momentum to send him crashing over the table and into the dish return window with a deafening clatter of metal and breaking ceramic. She ducked under Finn's wild haymaker, drove her shoulder into his midsection, lifted the 220-pound man clean off his feet, and slammed him onto the unforgiving tile floor. He landed with a grunt and didn't move. Noah, the last one standing, tried to grab her from behind. Maya spun within his grasp, a sharp elbow to his ribs breaking his hold. She followed it with a perfectly executed uppercut that lifted him onto his toes before he collapsed in a heap. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 5 of the base's proudest recruits were scattered like broken dolls. Maya stood in the center of the wreckage, her breathing steady, her hands unclenched. She looked down at Caleb, who was trying to push himself up, his face a mask of blood and disbelief. What are you?" he gurgled. Maya crouched down, her hazel eyes locking onto his. Her voice was calm, devoid of anger, a simple statement of fact. Petty Officer First Class Maya Callahan, United States Navy, SEAL Team 4. She let the words sink in, each one a hammer blow to his shattered ego. "This scar," she said, her finger lightly tracing the line on her side, "is from an RPG in Kandahar. This burn," she gestured her shoulder, is from an IED in Ramadi. I am on temporary medical leave while the Navy decides if the damage is permanent enough for a discharge. She stood up, her shadow falling over him. I tried to avoid this. I gave you every chance to walk away, but you decided that quiet meant weak. You were wrong. The silence that followed the 30-second storm was absolute. The few remaining personnel in the canteen stared, their forks frozen halfway to their mouths, their faces pale with shock. By the time the military police arrived, summoned by a panicked cook, the scene was one of controlled carnage. The MPs tried to piece it together, but the stories were a mess of shame and confusion. Caleb, his nose packed with gauze, mumbled something about a misunderstanding. Liam, once he could breathe again, claimed they were just having conversation. Marcus and Finn were too concussed to form coherent sentences. Only Noah, cradling a broken arm, kept repeating the words Navy SEAL, but the MPs dismissed it as delirium. When they went to find Maya Callahan for her statement, her quarters were empty. The duty roster showed she had signed out an hour earlier on emergency family leave. She was a ghost once more. Master Sergeant Vance was not surprised when the call came. He handled the fallout with quiet, grim efficiency. The official report was a masterpiece of bureaucratic obfuscation, citing a training-related altercation before being sealed and buried in a classified file. The cost for the Kings was steep and permanent. Caleb Thorne's promising military career ended with a medical discharge. The damage to his sinuses was too severe for him to ever wear tactical gear again. The other 4 completed their training, but they did so separately, transferred to different units with a permanent black mark on their records that would follow them forever. They were watched, distrusted, and forever haunted by the 30 seconds in which their world had been torn apart by a quiet woman eating her dinner. They never spoke of it again. But stories, especially stories like this, have a way of traveling in the closed circuits of military life. Not the official details, but the lesson, the whispered legend of the civilian clerk who is something more, a reminder that the most dangerous waters are often the stillest. The base returned to its routine, but something had changed. There was a new current of respect, a caution in the way people looked at the quiet corners and the solitary figures. 3 months later, a new batch of fresh-faced recruits sat in the briefing room, buzzing with nervous energy. Master Sergeant Vance stood before them, his expression as unyielding as the desert landscape outside. After his standard speech on protocol and discipline, he added a new section. "Listen up," he said, his voice commanding silence. "A final word on respect. Some people you meet here will be loud. They'll tell you exactly how tough they are. They're not the ones you need to worry about." He paused, his eyes scanning every face in the room. Others are quiet. You might think they're weak or arrogant, or that they have something to hide. My advice to you is to treat every single person on this base, from the commanding officer to the civilians sweeping the floors, with absolute respect. Because you never, ever know what battles they have fought to earn their silence. He leaned forward slightly. The most dangerous people in the world are the ones you never see coming. And by the time you find out who you're really dealing with, it's already too late. Maya Callahan was long gone by then, absorbed back into the shadows from which she came. Somewhere out there, she was likely eating dinner alone, finding peace in the solitude she had fought so hard to protect. And that was exactly how she liked it. Have you ever witnessed someone being completely underestimated simply because they chose to be quiet? The story of Maya Callahan is a powerful reminder that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. What do you think was the most important lesson those recruits learned that night? And do you believe the consequences they faced were enough? Comment respect down below if you believe it's a quality that should be given freely until proven otherwise. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of hidden heroes and quiet courage. And if you know a veteran whose strength and sacrifice often go unseen, share this story with them as a salute to their silent power. There are more stories about heroes hiding in plain sight waiting for you on the screen. Click to watch one next, and we'll see you in the next one.